Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone. The other day I watched King Arthur Legend of the Sword, which is the Guy Ritchie take on the classic Arthurian legend. And it is the most surreal and bizarre cinematic experience that I've ever had. Let me explain what I mean. This film starts out really well. It puts all of these pieces in place that a movie should put in place so that you walk away having had a great movie experience. But that is not how you walk away from this movie. I walked away frustrated and annoyed, and here's the thing that's so bizarre about this. It's all because of probably no more than 10 minutes, the final sort of battle crescendo that takes place in this movie. You see, this film is set up as a sword and sandals type epic with a classic Guy Ritchie sort of spin on affairs. It's, these two warring factions, good guys, bad guys, lots of swords, lots of sandals, and also Guy Ritchie puts this whole Cockney gangster spin on it and sort of reimagines King Arthur in many ways as a Cockney gangster. It's great. It's creativity. It's everything is set up really well. It's progressing towards this final battle between the villain and the good guy. But instead what we have is this final battle, this final crescendo where the movie suddenly lurches into this massive and stark tonal shift. And it's like watching a film that suddenly forgets what it was and what it's established and what it's building towards and becomes something completely different to what you have been watching for the entire rest of the film. All of a sudden, in this final crescendo moment, like I said, they build so well towards this, and then all of a sudden, it goes from being a swords and sandals epic with fantasy elements to being a total fantasy affair, but not the good kind of Lord of the Rings type fantasy. It's more like that modern cinematic type fantasy, the Clash of the Titans type stuff. And you have these two characters. All of a sudden, Jude Law, the evil king, becomes this new character who is hinted at throughout the rest of the film, but is not really part of the film. So all of a sudden your mind straight away is very quickly disconnected from the actual story because King Arthur is now fighting this new villain effectively in your mind because this villain is not established in any substantial way throughout the previous rest of the film. And then all of a sudden here he is fighting this villain who is no longer Jude Law, who, throughout the rest of the film, Jude Law was this human king with these mystical powers that were at his disposal. And all of a sudden he goes from being that to being this large, giant demon with this brand new body, the glowing eye. Effectively, he becomes like Ghost Rider. It is the weirdest thing in the world. And you are totally disconnected from this character. It just doesn't feel like Jude Law anymore because there's no real connection. He's saying things that are related to Jude Law's character, but it's not really Jude Law and the character that's been established. And it's such a stark difference. And then to make matters worse, they have this battle that takes place on top of a plinth. It's almost like someone in the production team said, hey, remember that lightsaber battle at the end of Revenge of the Sith? We should do that kind of moment, one of those kind of things. We should have that in our movie because it sort of feels like that, the final crescendo of this film, and not to mention the big giant snake thing, which was kind of weird. It's almost like someone said, hey, let's change directors for the crescendo, and a completely different director who directed something that just doesn't feel anything like Guy Ritchie's usual fare. It's just so different. Not just from Guy Ritchie's usual fare, but from everything that's gone on previously in this film. Or perhaps it feels like they sort of decided to cut the film short. They just said, look, we can't be bothered. Well, we don't have the money to carry on with the production quickly. Let's just finish this thing as fast and efficiently as we can. And the end result is, it's surreal. It's just weird. I've never had a movie experience like this. And to make it even more bizarre, the final moments of the film, they go back to the sword and sandals type version of the story. So from cheap fantasy back into what the film was. And what makes this all so weird is that I've been to movies in the past where they start out badly and then by the second half they've redeemed themselves. I've been to movies that start good and finish good. I've been to movies that start really well and end badly. I have never been to a film though where there's this 10 minutes that is just so out of character to what everything else is and completely undermines all of the build-up, and everything else that's in the film is actually really good. It was just frustrating because, like I said, they've built a story in a movie like you should. They're putting together a story, a plot is developing, there's character arcs, there's character development, and then all of a sudden it lurches into this world, almost weird, sort of almost cartoon world that just, I don't think has any place in this movie. It was so disappointing. What it needed was an epic human battle with fantasy elements, which is what the rest of the film had been. And I don't know what to say about this film. I can see why a lot of people really didn't like it, why it really didn't resonate. It was just, I think it really is down to that final 10 minutes or so, that crescendo. Because then what comes after that, the final moments of the film, are actually back to what is the classic Guy Ritchie that we saw throughout the rest of the movie. What is Swords and Sandals. It's just bizarre. I don't know what to say. I'm still a little bit stunned by all of this, and quite frankly really disappointed, because I remember about 2/3 of the way through this film thinking, this is a good film. I think I might actually buy myself a digital copy of this. By the end of the film, literally, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I'm thinking, nah, I'm definitely not buying that. It is so weird. I've never, ever, ever had a movie experience like that. Maybe, though, I'm just strange, and you have had other movie experiences like that. Please feel free to share in the comments section below. Otherwise, thanks for watching. See you next time on Left Foot Media.